July 2023 marks the 7th anniversary of Cobra Convergence, an annual fan event to celebrate G.I. Joe and specifically to paint the town blue as we celebrate Cobra. This is an annual event going on its 7th year, hosted by HCC 788, aka Hooded Cobra Commander 788. The theme for 2023 is spies and infiltrators, and so what better way to celebrate than to go with a guy who commands entire armies of infiltrators and spies. Today we're going to take a look at some later characters and a depraved overlord who oversees another of Dr. Mindbender's genetic experiments. Today we're going to find out who Venomous Maximus is. Dr. Mindbender has had many evil, vile plots and schemes over the decades, often relying on his clinical background for his projects. Though he's an orthodontic specialist, he was experimenting with brainwave stimulation for pain relief, and it blossomed from there. He invented the battle android troopers, created Serpentor by experimenting with genetics and DNA manipulation, and another such project occurred in early 2000s during the Valor vs. Venom era. Dr. Mindbender was attempting to raise a new army for his evolution program. The subjects themselves are the product of a hybridization program combining human DNA with that of some of the deadliest creatures on planet Earth. They were cold-blooded reptilians, purposeful insectoids, savagely feral, qualities that replace their compassion and their empathy. These would be his Venom troops, that they called V-troops. But, like the regular Cobra rank and file, there was a hierarchy and specialization within the V-troops. For example, the Razor troops were the V-troop infantry, led by the nasty Razor Claw. Due to the procedures they underwent, the Razor troopers couldn't remember anything about their lives before. They were singularly focused on completing their mission, rip apart anything in their way with their pain tolerance cranked all the way up and their anger creating a haze through which they viewed the world. Razor troopers are led by Razor Claw and generally commissioned by Alley Vipers, though all under the command of Venomous Maximus. They're sent to infiltrate, stalk, and capture their prey, utilizing the wild tiger part of their spliced DNA. Dr. Mindbender fused Snow Serpent Troops DNA with Arctic Wolf DNA, and these became the polar cold weather specialists dubbed the Snow Wolves. Coil Crushers were pulled from the Jungle Viper forces for the program, combining their DNA with that of snakes, making them ideal shock troops and jungle environment infiltrators. Cobra had their underwater operatives in the form of the Hydro Vipers, Eels, and Cobra Moray troops. So Dr. Mindbender pulled some of these troops and combined their DNA with Eel DNA to make V-Troop maritime specialists that they called Electric Eels. They're good for aquatic operations and subsurface water infiltration. For desert environments, Dr. Mindbender hand-picked Sand Vipers and combined their DNA with Scorpions to make the Sand Scorpion Force, led by a guy named Neurotoxin. And then for wetland infantry, Dr. Mindbender took both Cobra volunteers and captured civilians, subjecting them to his venom serum and combined them with marsh rodent genetic material to turn them into the Swamp Rats, which are their V-Troop infiltrator and wetland infantry specialists. Dr. Mindbender then used recombinant DNA from his V-Troops to create a hybrid, his ultimate creation that would rule over the V-Troops as their overlord. And this is what blended and mixed to create Venomous Maximus. In IDW's G.I. Joe Cobra miniseries, Leonard Michaels, also known as Scoop, was investigating the Coil Cult and their leader, Serpentor. Michaels ran headlong into Serpentor and his goons and was knocked out and held captive at the Coil's compound. He was drugged there and brainwashed for over a week while kept in solitary confinement. His only points of contact were with Serpentor, with his guards, and a mysterious scarred individual we come to learn is Venomous Maximus. VMAX came to his cell to give him food and encourage him to keep pushing while subtly planting the Coil's cultish ideas in his head. Venomous Maximus shared a long story about Crocmaster, meant to show Michaels how even someone as lost as Crocmaster could still find a home with the Coil. So in that story, Crocmaster had been out in the swamps when Zaymont of Extensive Enterprises found him after he'd been spending a week destroying all of Extensive Enterprises' assets in the area. But instead of being there to kill Crocmaster, Zaymont was there to offer Croc membership in the ranks of some of their associates, not with Extensive Enterprises, but an ally. An organization that was impressed with Crocmaster's ability to penetrate all of Tomax's security and his defenses. This other group needed someone who specializes in eco-terrorism, and Crocmaster was the perfect fit. And then, with an injured arm, Venomous Maximus climbed out of Zaymont's Humvee to talk with Croc. VMAX told him that he represented the religious fanatics wing of the Coil, and he said that Croc should join the Coil, and the selling point was that they killed a lot of people. And so that's the story that put the thought in Scoop's head that no matter how much you lose, no matter how far gone you are, you always have a home with the Coil. A home that would soon be calling him back. In G.I. Joe Cobra issue 9, Venomous Maximus was there for the ceremony when Michaels willingly sacrificed himself to Serpentor upon an altar beneath the image of Globulus. In 2004's G.I. Joe vs. Venom minicomic, Hawk was captured and subjected to Mindbender's venom, forced to be made into Venomous Maximus. They had gotten Hawk to a hospital nearby where Lifeline and Link, Dr. Link Talbot, could properly treat him. And it was Dr. Link Talbot, a combat veterinarian, who figured out what was wrong with Hawk, but then Storm Shadow snuck into his hospital room and used his Arashikage mysticism after saying to Hawk that his service to Cobra was not over. To put him into sleep, which is when Snake Eyes and Scarlet heard the noise. So the G.I. Joe team had to go head-to-head with him after Venomous Maximus demanded they lay down all their weapons and submit to Cobra Commander. And this happened while the plane-carrying Cobra Commander was shot down by Zartan, Razor Claw, and the Razor Troops, and it crashed into the Florida Everglades, and the Joes were surrounded by swamp rats. And then for G.I. Joe Valor vs. Venom, the animated movie, Venomous Maximus was voiced by Frank Salazar. In the movie, he's the result of modifying General Hawk's DNA and splicing it with animal DNA to create the fearsome, feral, bloodthirsty villain. So, in the movie, Destro and the Baroness had kidnapped General Hawk just after having a fun paintball game. They said that they were there to offer him a job. Duke was put in charge of the team and commissioned by the President of the United States to go visit a zoo that had been attacked. It was there that he met Dr. Link Talbot, the zoo's chief veterinarian. They found a device that was taking blood and tissue samples from some of the animals at the zoo, something that High Tech said was, quote, another hunk of junk from Dr. Mindbender. Duke said that people in small towns around the world were being kidnapped, and there must be some correlation between that, an attack at the zoo, and Hawk's capture. Meanwhile, Cobra was conducting their research at the Viper Pit, a Cobra bio research facility deep in frozen Antarctica. This is where Cobra Commander had General Hawk tied up and held prisoner. Destro, the Baroness, and Dr. Mindbender then met up with them for Mindbender to inspect his new test subject. Dr. Mindbender had a victim in a venomization chamber, and Overkill was thrilled. We then see Cobra Commander pick up the Fang Blade for the first time. Cobra Commander says that his venomized troops are genetically programmed to obey whomever wields the Fang Blade. And to demonstrate his transformation device, Destro opted to use an Arctic wolf DNA sample, and it transformed the person inside into a rabid, feral humanoid wolf. Cobra Commander said he planned to turn people by the thousands, raise an army, crush democracy, and rule the world. Cobra Commander then ordered Dr. Mindbender to prepare General Hawk for the, quote, maximum treatment. Mindbender begrudgingly agreed, but was clearly apprehensive about this since, as he says, it hadn't been perfected yet. First, Overkill had to hook Hawk up to the brainwave scanner to download his memories. Destro told Cobra Commander that he'd be able to implement the full venomization program, but it would take 3 years. And as you'd expect, that was not acceptable to Cobra Commander at all. He wanted it, and he wanted it now. The G.I. Joe team had intel that Cobra had shot down a U.S. satellite over Antarctica and knew this was Cobra, and with that, that's where Hawk was likely to be held. So they mounted a rescue mission across the ice and snow in a pack of ice sabers. After an earlier team had to fight with the Sand Scorpions, this team had to take on the Snow Wolves, and so growing more desperate inside watching G.I. Joe cut through his Snow Wolf V-troops outside, Cobra Commander ordered Dr. Mindbender to give Hawk all of the vials of animal DNA. He told them, prepare for maximum venomization, and Duke and Kamakura almost stopped him, but they were captured by the guards and forced to watch Hawk's transformation. Cobra Commander said with Hawk's military and tactical prowess, coupled with DNA from a variety of apex predators, he'd have the perfect leader for the perfect army. He said, if it's a monster you want, it's a monster you'll get, and proceeded to use the Fang Blade to envelop Hawk in the venomization particulates. It didn't work at first, so Overkill hooked the venomization chamber up to his own supercharged magnetic induction field transmitter, and when he flipped the switch, Hawk was awash in waves of energy flowing and undulating all around him and the chamber. The procedure was painful, yet abrupt, and a few moments later Hawk emerged, transformed, now the monstrous Venomous Maximus. Almost immediately, Venomous Maximus started fighting with Duke and Kamakura. He threw Kamakura at a control panel, knocking him out before attacking and fighting with Duke. VMAX threw Duke at another electronics panel and knocked him out, then threw him at the feet of Cobra Commander and walked away. They relocated to the Sand Scorpions pyramid in the desert where Venomous Maximus, new costume on, said, I command my army, I assist no one. The fight is with G.I. Joe, but remember the Venom troops answer only to me. It takes a lot of moxie to stick your finger in Cobra Commander's face and say something like that. VMAX knocked the Fang Blade out of Cobra Commander's hands and told him, after Cobra's dealt with G.I. Joe, I deal with you. Overkill met with Venomous Maximus outside and revealed he was also on Maximus' side. A change of leadership would be good for Cobra, Overkill confided in him. The Joes brought Dr. Talbot to their Supreme headquarters to ask him if he could help, and he told them he knew how to reverse the V-Troop process. Talbot would invent the cure, and High Tech said he would invent the delivery system. Talbot figured out that a simple amino acid substitution would be enough to separate the human DNA from the spliced animal DNA. But, strangely, that was rather simple and a basic mistake. He tried it on an eel, and it worked. Venomization reversed. Cobra had a launcher outside their desert citadel loaded with missiles that carried venomization payloads. So when the G.I. Joe team made it to their staging area for their own attack, Duke told them time was critical. They couldn't bomb the rocket launcher because all those V-troops were just kidnapped innocent people and they needed a cure, not a bullet. The G.I. Joe team used their stealth fighter fleet to shower all the V-troops outside the citadel in antidote spray, transforming them back to their human form and saving them. The G.I. Joe team made it to the control tower, cornering Cobra Commander, who cried out desperately for help from Venomous Maximus. VMAX was still hiding out with Overkill though, waiting for G.I. Joe and Cobra to eliminate themselves so he could rise up in the ruins as the new ruler. But he waited long enough. Venomous Maximus made it to the control tower and confronted the Joes there. First, he fought Heavy Duty, whom he rather easily knocked to the ground, and he battled with Duke while verbally sparring with Cobra Commander. He told Cobra Commander, "You are the servant now, I shall rule Cobra." Venomous Maximus then shattered the Fang Blade and lifted Cobra Commander up by one hand, laughing out about how he now controls him instead of the other way around. Venomous Maximus and Overkill each picked up Cobra Commander, and Dr. Mindbender then threw them at each other head first, knocking them both out. Venomous Maximus went outside to the missile launch complex and fought with the other G.I. Joe team. Duke showed up for a rematch with Venomous Maximus, and the two fought again, but Snake Eyes and Scarlet came and helped them even the odds. The team inside then forced Dr. Mindbender to turn on the device outside where VMAX was fighting, and when he did, Venomous Maximus was sucked into the vortex and held in place, stuck in its crackling energy field. And so with him now trapped, the G.I. Joe team ran up and hit VMAX with a salvo of paintballs which were loaded with antidote to reverse his venomization. But that wasn't quite enough. VMAX was super powerful, so Hawk himself internally had to help fight that last part back, a fight to regain his own humanity. So he fought and struggled, and with another surge of energy from the machine, the V-Troop formula shed and fell from Hawk's body, and Hawk emerged human once again. Dr. Mindbender and High-Tech then reversed the polarity on the machine, and it self-destructed, completely destroying both Cobra's Citadel and all of the biotech R&D, we hope. VMAX's first action figure was released in 2004 as part of the Valor vs. Venom line. He came with a gold warhammer, like that Fang Blade, something that would make Serpentor proud, along with a silver knife that was reused from a recent Overkill figure. He was also carded in a 2-pack with Duke for this version. The next year, 2005, Venomous Maximus came with the Venomization Chamber. The chamber was an electronic playset which had a rotation action where it looked like subjects inside were actually undergoing the V-Troop transformation. This thing could even light up and make sound. So VMAX is summed up nicely with a quote from his file card which says, "No one can stop me, I will control all of Cobra and destroy the G.I. Joe team completely." And so with that, that's a wrap on this one, my friends. I'm Jesse, this is JLS Comics. Happy Cobra Convergence, and I'll see you soon.